Good afternoon. Good to be with you before the final preseason game with Arizona coming in here. It seems like this preseason is absolutely flown by, and week one will be here before we know it. So with that, any questions you may have?
I know teams are keeping it vanilla, but now you've had it for 2 games, or I guess put vanilla in quotes. What have you liked that you've seen or not liked?
Yeah, I like the fact that there's been returns. I like the fact that there's been a little bit of excitement in the play. I think we're still learning. We watch all the games, and so yeah, I would say there's nothing earth-shattering in regard to scheme that we've seen, but that'll continue to evolve as we finish up here through the preseason, and absolutely in the early weeks of the regular season.
Let's talk about the last roster spots. A lot of times being dictated by special teams. How much of your time does that take this time of year?
Yeah, it takes a lot of time. The good news is that we've got a lot of candidates there. It's not a situation where, hey, we're talking like, well, we're short there or something. So we've got some really good football players and a lot of good candidates. So, that special teams element will be a factor in some of the final decisions on our roster.
Some of the young guys on the roster, Chris Abrams, Dre, and obviously the secondary, but he's gotten a little bit of an extended look as a jammer. What do you see from him, and maybe how he can fit that role a little bit, please?
Yeah, he's a good player for us. I think that's a perimeter player that, as you mentioned, a jammer or a corner in the punt return game, a perimeter player on the punt side. So at that corner, the DB spot, you're always looking for that player that can win with speed and win his matchup and impact that phase of the game.
Where would you say the punting competition stands with Trenton getting some opportunities on Sunday?
Yeah, I'd say it's still close. I think that Trenton got some opportunities that he did not get there in week one, especially the last punt. That was good to see. That's more in line with what we have seen over the last couple weeks especially. So we still plan on both players to get an opportunity here in the final preseason game, and then we'll see how it shakes out from there.
When you've got a competition like that, how do you weigh the smaller sample size of the games versus the obviously much broader sample size that you've had every day?
Yeah, I think with both players, I mean, there's history there and experience. Obviously, Gil has punted for a few years there in Chicago, but as you go through this, there are some elements where you put a little bit higher of a premium, whether it's a game or the practices against Green Bay. So again, I've said it before. I think both guys have done a great job, and both are worthy to be one of the 32 in the league.
Coach, last year when I asked you if you lobby for guys, you said you don't lobby, but you'll share your thoughts. But are there some guys where you'll tell Sean and George, like, this guy could help us more if you're close, so-and-so?
Yeah, absolutely. So, to the question as far as those final roster spots, we have a vote. And so when I say we, as Coach Westhoff and Coach Banjo and myself, in regard to the impact that that player makes on special teams. The cool thing about Coach Payton is there is an emphasis in that phase of the game, and so it's just not lip service. I mean, it's backed up by action, and so I would share with you that the value in the special teams phase of the game can move, and it's not only the roster, you're 53, but you're also talking practice squad. I mean, now the way the rules are, that's really an extension of your roster with the elevations that you can make.
Kind of adding on to that question, special teams is where a lot of bubble guys, can make it here or elsewhere. Do you use this last game to also maybe showcase some guys that may not make it here, but you want to,
Yeah.
Or do you not because of the practice squad?
No, I think that there's still an evaluation process there. So the players that will end up, playing on Sunday, they're still being evaluated, and it's just good that there is, they're going to get experience where that tape ends up getting out there. But there's no final decisions that have made here, so there's still a good bucket of players that will play on Sunday, especially in our phase of the game, whose performance could end up dictating on whether they're on the active, whether they're on the practice squad. So that evaluation process is still gonna go through the final game.
The feedback,
Two more.
the feedback you've gotten from players on that kickoff, the guys at the line of scrimmage, what do they say? Is that difficult for them? What are some of the?
Yeah, so Mike, I would say the feedback that we've got is positive. Why? Is because they like the fact that there's a play. They like the fact that they're showcasing their blocking skills, their ability to beat blocks, and ability to make tackles. So I would share with you that from the player's standpoint, it has been a positive because it is more plays for them as well. In regard to your question and how it's being blocked, It depends. It depends on who they're going against, who that player is. I would share that, as you mentioned, sometimes, there's a guy that feels more comfortable, because you can still have those two floaters. So some guys feel more comfortable in a closer proximity, especially if they're blocking a speed player, because it gives them less room to avoid and such. So, it just depends on who the player is and who they're blocking. But I would say the feedback has been positive for the play.
When it comes to a punting competition, how much does holding necessarily play into it, and how do you quantify? Because we just always take it for granted.
Yeah, in most instances, holding does. The good thing here is both of these guys are very good holders. Will tell you that, and just working with the snapper in regard to the late, not only the location of the snap, but where we're catching the ball in laces. So I would share with you, we're fortunate that both of those players at that spot are very good holders.